What a beautiful Sunday it is to come to your screen and give you all the amazing and exciting stories happening around us here in Nigeria and also across the world. It's actually an exciting time here for Nigerians because the kidnapped pupils and teachers are back home to their families. This is one concern that Nigerians have had over time. But before I bring you that excitement, my name is Aniete Patrick, and of course today we're here on Global Morning, and I will be listening because I have my co-anchor with me in the studio, in person of Mukhtar Kasim. Hello, Mukhtar.
Hello, Aniete. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, it's a cheerful morning, and it's been a pleasant weekend with the good news of the release of the Oyo school kids who spent over 52 days in captivity.
Yes.
And finally, they get to reunite with their loved ones. It's a very cheering one, and we hope that this is the beginning of greater success for our military in terms of tackling insecurity and freeing all other abducted students or people generally who are in captivity.
Well, this for me has actually shown a very strong way that the authorities don't really rest. They push and push, and you could see the coordinated efforts with all security agencies to ensure that result is gotten. And then the children, I like the fact that after the whole thing, there was also a psychological test to ensure that they are okay and their families are happy. I'm happy because remember the case of the Chibok girls.
Yes, up until now, it's been well over how many years?
Yes.
We've not heard about the Chibok girls, the Dabchi girls and all the girls. So this, like I said earlier, is a very great one. And even though, of course, we've heard some disparaging voices saying, what took you so long? It doesn't matter. As long as, that's one thing I tell people. If the government does good, comment them when they do good. It's always about criticism and always trying to find holes in the government particular method.
Quite true.
This is very commendable, and we hope, like I said, a greater success and more grease to their elbows, like they like to say.
And we hope that this comes to an end with the issue of pupils, because schools are supposed to be safe space, and I like the directive given by the president that they should look into that issue around safe space for schools.
There's an initiative already.
There's an initiative, yes, but
safe school
implementation.
Initiative, but the question is how far has it been implemented?
Yes.
Because, like you said, the school is a place that's supposed to be a safe space
for the children,
and it's a place that would be a future, because the leaders of today, which are the children, are the leaders of together even tomorrow. So if they cannot guarantee safety, what does that really tell for our nation?
Yes.
So of course, this is something that we would want to see happen all across the country.
Very true,
and more. Like I said, kudos to you.
We're really excited. I feel that's just basically the thing. We're really excited because for me, I had the thought of the mother, the siblings, the father. Every child sees the father first as his safe protector. That when he's caught up in challenges, the father can always, I can. But when the father's hands are tied, he cannot even reach out to his child. All of those psychological trauma that played out for the families. Because look at the children, quite tender.
Very tender.
But it's good that they go back home safe.
But then again, after getting back home safe, the question is, what's their mindset now? The psyche, the trauma,
that's why the authorities are talking about these things.
So I hope all of those things are going to be catered for, because it's a really traumatizing experience, and it's going to take quite a while for them to get back to their normalcy. But I hope the government will be supporting them in every possible way to make sure they stand on their feet and they don't get to be affected for far too long. Very true.
Well, we look forward to seeing such things play out, and also see that this children get all the needed help and support to get out of the state. It's good news, they're back, but we need to also walk them through this healing process and recovery process. But that's it. But let's also tell you that while we're excited about that, we also have a rundown for today. We have an Inspire Review segment.
And of course, we've got Taste and Texture, where we to you breakfast the way you like it. And of course, our discussion segment, which is something that you don't want to miss.
Of course, you want to miss, because we have a whole lot lined up for you. Discussion segments is also, as we build up to the election in 2027, we also forgetting that we are done Ekiti. We also have Oshu coming up as well. So all of that lined up. But let's quickly start up with the newspaper review segment after this time off. Please stay with us. It's good to have you join us back, and of course we have a lot of papers lined up for you. We have the Punch, we have the Nation, we have This Day, a lot of papers. But let's quickly start our stories and telling you stories making the headway. We'll start quickly with our front page cover of the Sunday Punch newspaper. The Sunday Punch newspaper has its major lead story that comes really bold here. It says Northerners 2FG, and the story there says replicates Oyo rescue operation in Kaduna, Borno, Kwara. And that story has a lot of riders under it. And the first one there says our loved ones deserve equal action, families speaking as well. We also have another one that says no region deserves less attention in rescue efforts. That's coming from the ACF and NEF as well. And the next one beside it, the Sunday Punch, it says security forces committed to freeing all victims, says presidency. So all of that's telling you that the authorities are doing their bit, and they started with one, and because this one had a whole lot of voices, it was really glaring. It was really after worries filling the build-up. So all of this story contained on page 3.
Of course, like we said, the government should be committed to rescue of all abducted people, regardless of the region, whether it's in northern Nigeria, in southern Nigeria. Every abducted person should be rescued. But of course, we know it's a step at a time. So this one is a particular right step in the right direction, and we hope that it spreads across and all of the abducted people get rescued. So it's a good one from the Ariba Consultative Forum and the Northern Elders Forum, calling on the government to also prioritize people from northern Nigeria. But away from that story, let's take you above the nameplate to the left-hand corner where it says no deadline extension for 2027 candidate submission, and that is INEC speaking, and the picture there is the picture of the INEC chairman. We've had a lot of extensions, so he's saying no more extensions for you. Try to meet up with the deadline. Of course, the parties should rally around to make sure they are able to meet up with the deadline. It's not something that's rocket science.
It's not actually rocket science.
Candidates.
I like the fact that INEC comes out every time tough with their words and give all the necessary information. They've been as transparent as they can, proactive, and telling you every step. They guide and just to every step they've taken. So there's no cause for alarm. There's no cause for man say INEC did not tell us. Nobody will listen to that. So it's good that they've said no more extension to this particular time for anyone because they have a schedule.
They have. That schedule has come out a long time ago. And the INEC chairman has been one who has been clamoring, telling them.
So what's the excuse to political parties? Like I always say, it's a multi-stakeholder approach. So we cannot just leave it all the time to say it's INEC. INEC is the one that is faulty. INEC. So let's political parties also play their role and also and answer that. So let's go beside on the right hand corner there, the other story just beside the INEC story. It says Nigeria gets additional $208.3 million World Bank loan for cash transfer, and that story is on page 4 of the Sunday Punch newspaper.
And away from that story, let's go below the nameplate. It says xenophobia, 1,174 Nigerians evacuated as final batch returns from South Africa, and details defined on page 8 of the Sunday Punch newspaper. Of course, we have been seeing Nigerians repatriated.
Out of the 1,000 who indicated interest,
yes,
we have this number coming out strong. And so far, we're seeing that the numbers are increasing on the daily. We see now we have 1,170. That's a good number.
That's a good one, and that shows the government's commitment, like you said, to bring you back whoever it is that's willing to come back, so that you don't get to become a victim of the xenophobic attacks that we have seen in South Africa.
Okay, so let's move away from that story and tell you the other stories just below that particular story. It says thousands of pigs die as swine fever spreads in Plateau, and that story is on page 6. That's about the food sector, agriculture. There, talking about the disease. And earlier we talked about Lassa fever.
Lassa fever. We have Ebola and all of that, and now we have
swine fever.
Swine fever, that is.
We need to take and pay attention to animals and ensure that they also are safe, so that agricultural produce can't stand.
Of course, if we always talk about trying to build the sector, we have to take every particular act of that sector, whether it's the crop or the animal sector, very important. So we hope this is nipped in the bud so it doesn't spread to other sectors. Away from that story, it says, just below, it says, looting the dead. How accident scenes turn hunting grounds for criminals. Details you find on pages 28 and 29 of the Sunday Punch newspaper. And this is something that is very worrisome, and it's something that increasingly has become a trend.
It's actually very annoying to see this trend that where somebody is hurting and you as a human being. That's why I always preach about humanity first.
Of course.
If you are human and you're in your real nature that God created you to be, because I think that's the nature of God gave you to be a human being, and then you start looting. Someone is hurting, you're supposed to save.
You're supposed to be the first responder
before authorities come in.
You see people using their phones to video, filming, some people taking. It's really not a good one.
I don't even dwell on this because it's actually annoying at this point.
I just hope that we become our brother's keepers, because
and look out for each other.
The golden rule is do unto others what you want others to do to you. So business about that will be very important.
Well, let's move away from that story and tell you this other story just beside that story. It says, inside growing allegations of extrajudicial killings against Anambra security operatives. And that story is there on page 24 and 25 of the Sunday Punch.
And of course, another story just by the right-hand corner says, Lagos flood killed my 6-year-old daughter, left me homeless, grieving father. This detail you find on page 20 of the Sunday Punch newspaper.
Well, just at the bottom, please, there, because we talked about the Ishoran flooding. I think that was last time we were here. We talked about this, and it is actually a thing of concern. We hope that authorities will look at this and make sure that this does not repeat itself again.
Hopefully.
Well, at the bottom plate there it says why Tinubu. Let's quickly get that story there. It says
why Tinubu retained Shatima as 2027 running mate.
Yes, this is also a way of consolidating, according to what the chairman of the APC, national chairman of the APC said. They're rewarding loyalty and one who has stayed with that. So they have their reasons, and one of the reasons is what they've just stated. Or more reasons, they actually had to unveil him and keep him as the running mate. But that's what it takes for you. They have a choice and they know what their strategy is.
The strategy is to get to win. So whatever it is that you would want to do to win that election, you have to do. So I think this is what the APC has considered by retaining the vice president. And we hope, like we always say, whatever it is you do in politics, try to have the interest of the people
Nigerians first.
Very important.
Well, that's the size of it or the Sunday Punch newspaper. Let's quickly turn our focus and look at what the Nation newspaper looks at. The Nation newspaper has its own lead story, and it starts boldly. Here it says how adopters abandoned Oyo pupils, teachers. Okay, that's on that's a different dimension to I think this is just a breakdown and a guide, like a future write-up for you to pick up and find out what this story is really talking about. So he wants you to understand
how the inner workings of the particular operation and how it went. You know, there are different issues, but different accounts and different sides of it. So this is one particular angle that you might be interested in. So pick up this particular paper and get details. Away from that story, let's go above the nameplate by the left-hand corner. It says, Oshun 2026, why we've not arrested hoodlums hiding in government house. And that is the police speaking. So it's very interesting. We are leading up to the 2027 election and the 2026 Russian governorship election, and we are seeing this particular dimension from the police. If there are hoodlums in the government house,
so we're safe.
So if the government house can have more hoodlums, we're very safe in the Russian
I'm sure there's a very good definition or reason to why that story is saying that. But we'll find out. Pick up the copy of the paper and find out details of that story.
And then another story here, it says, Insight Tani Mola, how the dead link in PFIC scandal. Details you find on page 6 of the Nation's newspaper, and that's about the size of the stories that we take on the Nation newspaper. We'll go to the next paper for review, which is the Sunday Vanguard newspaper. And the Sunday Vanguard newspaper is still talking about the Oyo school abduction. Of course, the Sunday Vanguard says Oyo school abduction. And the story says why survivors won't be handed over to Makinde until after 48 hours. And it has a host of riders. One of them here says, Source: Army officer killed in rescue operation. Government says we will honor those who died. Another writer says blow by blow account of how captives regained freedom. And the last one here says video: troops rough road to terrorist enclave. And the other writer here says NMA warns of school children's mental health. All of these stories you find details on pages 4 and 5 of the Sunday Vanguard newspaper.
There's a whole lot of sides to this story, just like we said, so it's good that you pick up a copy of the paper, understand the narrative the writer is trying to paint with all the stories, so we don't change the narrative for you. So get a copy of the papers and find out what this narrative is about, and then you'll feel much better. But let's go just below that particular story there. We have the story that says Igbo leaders warn against suppression of opposition, and that story is on page 6 of the Sunday Vanguard newspaper as well. And above the nameplates, we have the story there.
Of course, it says PFIPC, Tinubu under pressure to drop ICPC inquiry. The writer here says orders independent investigation. Baja should be suspended. Presidency cannot investigate itself. Details you find on page 9 of the Sunday Vanguard newspaper.
So away from that, just beside that, we have where it says Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, battle for not votes intensifies. That story is on page 11 as well.
Of course, let's see below you see a story here that says in Lekki, the rich also cry. And it says as floods turn exclusive estate into canals. Writers here say, eyewitness, I watched in awe as flood water carried 2 jeeps like paper. And the second writer says, people used canoes to leave houses. Canoe operators charge 1,000 naira per trip. It's time for people to make business.
You know, that's one thing people exploit. I'm telling you, sometimes we keep pointing fingers, but we need to also look back at ourselves, because the truth is when you point a finger, one is also facing back.
But they ask you, how do you expect the Lord has given us a way to make.
So is that so even exploiting people that make.
You want them to swim in the river. Well, of course, on a lighter note, but of course, exploitation is something that really not fun.
Because this is a circumstance, this is a challenge for this people. You can't just take advantage and want to.
What you should do is even lend a helping hand,
because they're going through a phase and all that. So let's move away from that and talk about one concern they've also had in Lagos State there, where it says how idle tankers keep Apapa Kirikiri in constant gridlock. That story is on page 6 of the Sunday Vanguard newspaper. And of course, a whole lot of stories making around, but that's it about the size of the Sunday Vanguard newspaper. Let's quickly turn to our next paper, as that's the Weekend Trust. The Weekend Trust paper starts its own story. Let's give you this breakdown here. It's a different dimension to what we've had so far. That's the Weekend Trust. It says mandates hijack. How 16 MDAs got 206 billion naira for constituency projects. That's not in the budget. How that came into play, how it has been distributed across the ministry, departments, and agencies of government there. It's broken down for you to pick up a copy and find out. That story is contained on page 4 of the Weekend Trust newspaper. And
above that story, by the left-hand corner, it says lithium, Kaduna's buried wealth. And details on page 12. We know Nigeria is a land of abundance, and we have so many resources, and this is one in Kaduna State, and we hope the government will be able to explore it for the benefit of the state and the nation at large. Okay,
so quickly, let's go beside. I saw that I watched that papers 27, able to run with Shetima. That story is on page 9, and just next to that, talking about the Oyo kidnap, we've seen different sides of the story. This one says kidnappers arrested as adopted Oyo pupils rescue. That story is on page 8 of the Weekend Trust newspaper, and that talks about the size of the Weekend Trust newspaper. Let's quickly turn our focus and look at what the Sunday Independent newspaper looks like.
And of course, the Sunday Independent newspaper has a different dimension to stories we've seen previously. It says counter-insurgency, the trouble with Operation Safe Corridor. Of course, that's one of the operations we've seen across the country aimed at and bringing end to insurgency in Nigeria. And we'll see how far that goes if you pick up the paper and see the troubles and the successes with that particular operation. And above the nameplate, it says fake federal agency, why Nigerians reject ICPC Pro. And it has two riders. First one says experts say independent panel will do better job. And the second rider says insist that NBA CSOs, independent auditors be involved.
Of course, we know that those stories will come in that way because we've seen clamor for the independent body to look at this particular investigation. But let's wait and see how this pans out in the long run, because they're all sides looking at this.
Of course, there's a saying that you cannot be the judge in your own case. So if the government is involved, let's see an independent panel. I think I would also buy that particular idea. But not to dwell too much on that story, let's go below the picture of the NSA and see a story here that says Oshun Global Poll, danger looms, and that is analysts giving that warning, and details we are going to find on page 5.
Okay, so let's go below the story there. We have where it says Oyo hostage rescue. I'll tell Nigerians what happened. That's Governor Makinde speaking there. He said he will tell his own side of the story. We'll look forward to hearing. And then we have the writer that says Governor Sanwo-Olu, others excited over successful operations. And we also have where ADC CDHR seek release of other Nigerians still held in Borno and Kwara State as well. Well, that's about the size of the stories making the rounds on this particular paper, the Sunday Independent. Let's quickly go. I think that's about the last paper. Okay, we have
the Sunday Sun.
The Sunday Sun newspaper has its own lead story. Sunday Sun newspaper, still talking about the fake agency and the scandal around all of that. So it says, with the lead story there, it says PFIPC 1.3 billion naira budget scandal. We have where it says National Assembly under fire. Of course, National Assembly, of course, under fire, because we want to find out how the budget they got for that agency played out. That's one of the concerns that has been raised. How come there's a fake agency but it got a budget?
Very important question.
So, but let's look at the riders there. It says anger over alleged oversight failure, poor budget scrutiny. Another one says legislature trading oversight for executive favor stakeholders allege. We also have budget processes. Executive legislature need massive house cleaning. Lawyers speaking. We also have what it says we'll wait for ICPC to come out with its findings. That's the Senate saying their own side of that story. And all of this is contained on page 18 and 19 of the Sunday Sun newspaper.
And of course, if you look below that particular story, one here says APC Atiku will be no threat to Tinubu, and it has a writer that says only mischief makers speak against Muslim ticket, and that is Moka, the party spokesman, having a say on the particular emergence of the vice president being retained. And of course, away from that story, a bit of entertainment. By the left-hand corner, it says, I always brag I am the Yoruba Igbo girl, and that is Obile founder Tote London. Of course, that story has been making the rounds. But above the nameplate, Anyete.
Let's look at stories there where it talks about the right-hand corner there. The story there says planned phase out of JSS and SSS structure, and it has pressure mount on FG, and we have riders there that follow that story. It says governments should focus on giving children internet era education. That's parents speaking. It's also another one says it's like repainting faculty house without reinforcing foundation pillars. That's a pastor speaking story on page 4. I'm trying to understand the
correlation
of it. Well, I'm sure he's just giving his own side of it, how it should be like. But let's go beside that story.
Of course, beside that story, he says Igbo group to FG safeguard NDC presidential candidate. Details you find on page 25 of the Sunday Sun newspaper. And of course, the next story there, it says rescue of Oyo kids. Atiku, Sanwo-Olu, Alausa will be others. Lord Federal Government Security Forces. And the writer says ex-VP slams Atiku for not addressing reassuring Nigerians. And details you find on page 27.
Okay, so just beside that story there, we still have what it says budget funding. Tinubu faces resistance in NAS And of course, we have rider that says non-execution of constituency projects threatens members' re-election bids. And then we also have another one that says senators plot own pushback. Story on page 25 of the Sunday Sun newspaper. And that's about the size of our paper, or the Sunday Sun newspaper. And then we have one paper here before we wrap it up. It says Sunday Hope. The Sunday Hope newspaper. It has its own lead story that comes in very boldly here. It says Olokola Free Trade Zone, dear to my heart. It's what they speak. That you are speaking. Then we also have rather that says its key projects under administration's ease agenda. Another one says pays working visit to Aliko Dangote.
And of course, above the nameplate by the right-hand corner, a very interesting story says, under police arrest man, accomplice over alleged self-kidnap. Why would someone kidnap themselves?
People just say as a creative, but that's very expensive joke.
Honestly, it's not funny. It's not even funny on your family and your loved ones that you do that to yourself. But away from that story by the left-hand corner, it says, many celebrities don't know when to rebrand or exit the stage, and that is Nollywood legend Jim Ike speaking over there. If you come above the lead story, you see a story that we've seen. I watched other papers. It said replicate oil rescue strategy nationwide, and that is experts urging the federal government.
Okay, we have a lot of story there making the rounds. Well, let's talk a bit about sports, where there was actually a very heartbreaking one for sporting lovers, football fans generally, where we see South Africa World Cup. That's down there. We have South Africa World Cup star Jaden Adams dies at 25. I've seen everyone in the football is amazed because he was really worrisome because he was just there.
He was just there at the World Cup and he did his own bit.
His bid. So I'm sure he paid his last respects.
And the thing is, the authorities have not even revealed the cause of the death, so it's still mysterious what happened to him. And he actually lost his grandmom during the World Cup, and then now he has also joined, passed away. It's really, a sad one.
Really sad one to talk about. Well, that's the much we can take actually at the moment with all the stories making around. Pick up a copy of this particular papers we've brought your way and get all the juicy stories that will keep you informed and keep you abreast with what's happening around you, so you don't look lost each time conversations get to you as well. Well, Muta, we need to go. We need to take
breakfast.
I will take breakfast. That will also cue us next to the discussion segments as our guest is standing by to join us shortly, and then we'll talk about all of these issues. Some of them were raised in the dailies, but we'll talk about it in depth with our guests up next. Stay with us as breakfast will be served now.
Hello everyone and welcome to Taste and Texture. This is Sada Sugariba, your creative chef. In today's episode of the program, we'll be making yam and scrambled eggs. Yam and egg is the ultimate breakfast consumed in Nigerian homes. The delicious richness of yam pairs nicely with the egg and other ingredients that you'd love to make this over and over again. Ingredients: yam, 4 eggs, chopped onions, chopped fresh tomatoes, chopped peppers, seasoning cubes, salt, vegetable oil, and water. To prepare, peel the yam and cut into desired sizes. Add your peeled yam into a pot. Add salt and water and cover to boil. For the scrambled eggs, dice your onions, tomatoes, and peppers into desired sizes and add into a bowl. Break 4 eggs into a different bowl and add salt. Add some oil in a pan and heat up. Fry the onions for a bit and add pepper and tomato mix. Fry the mixture for 3 to 5 minutes while stirring gently. Add some seasoning cubes for taste and stir again. Add your eggs to the fried mixture and allow to fry for 3 to 5 minutes while stirring gently. Allow the oil to evaporate and turn down the heat. There you have it, your yam and scrambled eggs is ready. That's a wrap on today's episode of Taste and Texture. I hope you enjoyed these culinary demonstrations and trust you will try this recipe at home. Be sure to join me again for yet another taste-friendly delicacy. I am Saadatu Garba, your creative chef, saying thank you for watching.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubom Usoro.
On global television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust a multi-platform news broadcast, real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG.
Global TV News, accurate and unbiased. I'm Uyi Agmofwebe.
At Wichtech Cables, we don't just make cables, we deliver excellence. Our products are built with advanced technology, trusted for their unmatched quality and durability. With a wide range of cables, swift delivery, and continuous innovation, we stay ahead of the market demand. We are proudly Nigerian, fully indigenous, yet world-class. Backed by a professional team, strong technical support, and a deep commitment to customer satisfaction. Wichtech Cables is more than a brand, it's a promise. Wichtech Cables, quality cables better than the best.
At Erojim Shoe Factory, excellence starts from the ground up. Located at number 1 Pound Road behind Nigeria Correctional Service, Aba, Abia State. We produce 1,500 high-quality shoes every single day. Paramilitary shoes, safety boots, desert boots, ankle shoes, back-to-school footwear. All crafted with state-of-the-art equipment and built for strength, comfort, and durability. For reliable footwear that stands the test of time, choose Erojim Shoes for better product, strong steps, smart style. For inquiries, call 091-264-53399 or 070-3009-3944 or 080-6573-8374 or call 081-3167-3668. Email info@erojim.com. Website www.erojimdesign.com. Erojim. Walk with confidence. Walk with pride.
have you join us back. Of course, it's still Global Morning, and what a pleasure to welcome you on board to the discussion segments. But let's quickly talk to you because we know breakfast was served. I'm sure you liked that breakfast, which will keep you up with us on this conversation because it's actually an interesting one. I'm still Anita Patrick, and of course, I still have Mukhtar Kasim here with me.
Of course, I enjoyed that breakfast. I always like to do that. Yam and egg sauce with
you're the foodie, so I'm not surprised.
tea and all of that. So of course, and that will give us energy for the very important conversation that we have before us right now.
Okay, so Mukhtar is obsessed. Well, let's give you a guide to what our discussion is going to look like because we're going to be looking at preparedness ahead of Osun because, like I said, Ekiti has come and gone and Osun is next. So we're looking at INEC's readiness, voter registration, extension of and as well, and also the fight against vote buying. All of those things is what is necessary to pay attention to as the build-up to Osun comes on very, very speedily. Let's guide you through this. The Independent National Electoral Commission has begun final preparations for the Osun governorship election, well, following what many observers describe as a successful conduct of the recent Ekiti governorship election. Expectations are now high that Osun will consolidate the gains made in electoral reforms. Of course, as preparations intensify, INEC is also taking bold steps to improve voter participation. The Commission also extended the nationwide continuous voter registration exercise by another 2 weeks. That's to give room for everyone who's turned 18, who are first-time timers, to also deal with the issue around getting registered. It has also introduced a self-service online registration platform that allows first-time voters to begin and complete their registration electronically before verification by the Commission.
But at the same time, the INEC has also talked about how vote buying remains one of the biggest threats to electoral integrity in Nigeria, and it has been calling on the media to be able to help in exposing the people who are vote buyers and trying to hold them accountable. So that's something that's also very important that would be covered in this particular discussion.
Well, the Commission also says journalists must help, like Mukhtar has just stated, in dealing with the issue around all of this, help expose electoral offenders because vote buying is criminal offense punishable under the Electoral Act. And so the question is INEC truly ready for Osun? What lessons have they learned from Ekiti? Can technology, of course, reduce electoral fraud? All of those things are concerns with. And also with the extension of voter registration, will that improve participation? Because we always see voter apathy in some cases where people still have doubts around them. But the INEC is also doing their bits to see that.
I think INEC has actually done well. If you look at the Ekiti election, before then, I think we had over 1 million people register.
Yes.
But in previous elections, you see that the voter turnout is 49% and 45%, but the previous election had a better voter turnout. So I think that's a big credit to INEC sensitization drive, and it's publicity basically. So it has done well in that particular regard. I will hope it builds up on that particular success with the Osun election. Every election should be an opportunity to even consolidate on the previous gains of previous elections.
Of course. And how can Nigerians collectively stop vote buying? All of these concerns is what we're looking at. These are issues we want to pay attention to, and what a way to deal with this issue and talk about all of this concern, of course. And then joining us to have this conversation, who's joining us virtually, is the Deputy Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission in person of Mr. Wilfred Ifoga. It's good to have you join us this morning all the way, sir.
Good morning, and thanks
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
me.
What a way, we have a lot to talk about and to see how prepared INEC is. Of course, we see the job, amazing job you've done so far from your end to advocacy, information gathering, and also ensuring that there's enough time for voters to understand what it is like around preparations. But let's run through INEC's preparation for Osun. Give us a guide to what INEC is doing so far in preparations to the Osun election.
All right, for preparations for Osun election, if you can recall, the notice of election was actually publicized last year, precisely August 13, 2025, in preparation for Osun governorship election, because the law as at then provides that 360 days before the election, the notice of election should be published. And thereafter, this year, precisely around February, there was a review of that publication as it affects the activities of election because of the Electoral Act 2026 that was reenacted. Actually, then the Osun election was supposed to have been held on the 8th of August, but after the review or the revised timetable based on the Electoral Act, it is now to be done on August 15th, 2026. However, there are about 13 activities that we outlined for in preparation for the election. As we speak, 9 of them has actually been implemented. So just remaining the publication of the register for the election, also stoppage of campaign, and of course the election day proper itself, which is August 15. On the other hand, on the side of the commission, other activities have been going on. Some engagement with stakeholders, while others has to do with the commission's own activities, which include capacity building, um, voter education and sensitization. Even for us in voter education and sensitization as well, we've had engagements even at the beginning of, towards the end of June and this July. We've actually gone there for implementation of our programs as it has to do with sensitization. And thereafter, just about 2 weeks ago, we also engaged the media executives as well as reporters, including on-air reporter and online reporters as well, on some of the technology the commission is using, the electoral framework, as well as how the election will be conducted. So we engage them on those activities, and also to also let the media know about the online portal for media group that want to participate in the election to cover it, for them to be accredited, because only accredited media organizations will be allowed to participate. So outside that, the commission also has also through our planning and monitoring department, they've been going there to engage with the state office there on to ensure that everything we have outlined is done according to plan. Also, the operations department have been doing their bit as well. Then towards the end of this month, the Honorable Chairman and other members of the Commission will be in Ekiti to assess their level of preparedness. And that we also see him also being part of the peace accord that they will sign, as well as a test run of the beavers, a kind of mock exercise to ascertain the efficiency of the technological device, and also our staff there, how prepared they are for this election. And the Honorable Chair will also engage the stakeholders in an expanded meeting, and other collaborating agencies, especially with transport owners that will be engaging the chairman, as well as ICES, that's the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, to ascertain their level of preparedness in terms of securing the election properly. So these are so many other things that we have done. But so far, in terms of our activities for Osun, we've implemented, and there has been no cause for concerns for now.
That's clarity for Nigerians to understand what is actually in place for the election, because of course we've seen what has happened in Ekiti, and just like you mentioned, these are steps that are put in because of course there was a guideline preparation before this comes. But Mutar has something to
Thank you very much for bringing that particular perspective. I'd like for us to understand the Ekiti elections held not so long ago. So I'd like for you to tell us the lessons that was derived from that particular election in terms of security, in terms of logistics, and the preparedness of INEC, that is, and how it can be applied to the coming election in Osun State.
Okay, in terms of lessons learned, I think one of the challenges we had there will still be, although we've somehow overcame that. When you talk of election itself, it's just about logistics, especially when you consider Nigerian's terrain. Ekiti is a smaller state compared to Osun. Osun has about 30 local government areas with about 332 registration areas, and they have 3,763 polling units. So definitely the pattern for Osun will be quite different from Ekiti, as the case may be, because more vehicles will be deployed and more assistance will be needed in terms of transportation as well. But the Commission will not leave any stone unturned because in Ekiti, we were able to achieve over 94% opening of pool before 8:30. Okay, so that was a good one. But yes, according to the resolve of the chairman, he said we should be able to achieve 100%. So having seen what happened in Osun, what led to whatever that made some units not to be open before that time. But there's one thing we have to bear in mind. There are communities that are hard to reach. And the commission has this plan where we actually camp our officials a night or rather a day before the election day. And in that camp, we ensure that the place where we camp then is very secured. So if maybe within certain communities you're unable to get that, that means the officials will be camped in another location, and from there we'll move them to their polling units. So why, yes, we might not be able to get every of our officials and the materials to get to their polling unit as early as possible, but we do hope to be able to achieve that so that maximum 8:30 or maybe 9 a.m. at least all units should be opened. So we have seen what happened in Oshu. Then also there were pockets of technological challenges experienced in the field. So the department involved in that or that oversees that also has taken notes of all these challenges, and they are working on that. Also, that will be the only election we'll be having that day. Unlike Ekiti, where we also had some pockets of by-elections, especially which cuts across Nigeria, as the case may be. This particular one in Osun, all hands will be on deck, and all the loopholes that we identified will be, taken care of this time around. So we do hope for a good outing, bearing in mind that every other stakeholder will play their role, especially with the security agencies, those who we have involved in helping us in the transportation by ensuring that their vehicles and other means of transport we have procured are in good condition. The ad hoc staff themselves that will recruit, we behave well and uphold every standard of integrity as well as ethical um, this thing we expect them to abide with. And of course, even you, the media, helping us out so to also monitor the progress and also reporting. The civil society groups playing their role. The electorates too, abiding by the laws, and the political parties featuring candidates. We also behave well. We all do hope that everything will go on smoothly.
We're able to look at issues around the loopholes that you saw during the Ekiti election, but with us show now, we want to ask around, because we also have issues around voter apathy, which plays out in some scenarios. Well, many analysts have also looked at it that Ekiti restored confidence in elections. Would you say INEC now has a tested template that they can work with to ensure that the trust is continued built on for the Osun residents as they go out to cast their votes?
All right. Well, when we talk about trust, I think the best we can do for now, apart from as we're engaging now and letting them know what we are doing and what we have put in place to ensure the process is transparent and open enough, is for us to continue to let people know this is what we are doing, how it's being done, and who is responsible actually. And in good time, if there are changes, we let them know what is actually happening. For Ekiti, yes, like people talk about voter apathy. Though I have my own reserve about that because not everybody will actually come out to vote on election day. Okay, so and you can't actually force people to come out. So most of the time, the responsibilities actually is still on the parties themselves who will ordinarily canvass for votes. But then instead of canvassing for votes, we find that most times they don't really go after the real thing they need to do. You find out that their campaigns are actually bereft of the real ideas or policies of the party or what they intend doing. But you find out on election day, people still report the issue of vote buying. You see, I remember in the intro, people talked about the issue of vote buying. So that's one ugly thing that has actually come in this own climb now in terms of election. But however, vote buying is a pointer to the fact that something has been done to ensure that every vote counts. And because every vote counts, these people look all out to get these votes by going after the voters to bribe them in order for them to, choose their party in whatever form they want. But this is not supposed to be so. And that is why the commission has actually come out to ensure that even while a voter is at the polling unit, no one sees what that voter is doing by providing the polling booth, which actually, secures them or covers them or obscures them from any other person that he or she has not actually asked to go and assist them in the polling booth. And more so, there is a method that is used, to pre-fold the ballot paper so that before they go and print, the ballot paper is pre-folded and given to them. And it's expected that they open it, do their thumb printing, close the ballot paper just the way it was given to them, and bring it in the open to come and drop. But then you find out that they look for all ways, all means, to sabotage this process or efforts. So, but then we still call on everyone, every law-abiding citizen, at least to uphold every standard of morality when it comes to this nation, this task of building our nation, especially democratic process, to ensure that the process is devoid of all these anomalies, so that at least we can count ourselves, not just the commission, but Nigeria as one place everybody can look up to when you talk about a proper democratic process and in the process of choosing leaders. Because the the burden is not just on INEC alone. Like I do say, maybe maximum, maybe 40% of ensuring the integrity of the electoral process. That's what INEC actually carries. The every other is for every other person out there, every other stakeholder to play their part to ensure we have a good process.
Let's talk about some of the concerns. Some most of the cases we look at during election is security concerns. Yes, I know that you said multi-stakeholder engagements, the security operatives, all of that. Are there concerns raised from the security angle to look at flashpoints? Where the security operatives will pay attention to know how they can also find a way around it so the people are sure of coming out in their numbers to vote.
Okay, in terms of at times, yeah, although these are known, so what ordinarily happens is that even before the elections, there are communities probably they'll be having maybe communal clashes and maybe some other kind of conflicts. So first of all, this will raise some kind of red flag for us to know. So we have our officials um, in the field who bring these concerns to the state office, and then the state office they look at it and know the level of electoral participation of these persons too. And these are things that are also communicated to the police. That's why we always engage them. So when we bring our concerns to them, they look at it and impute it in their own security framework on how to police the elections. So they continue to engage. And if there are new developments as it concerns security challenges, they also we also bring it to them. They also, try to, factor it into whatever arrangement they have. But well, this is an off-cycle election, so definitely in terms of security arrangements, there will be more than enough personnel on ground. However, we have to note this that the electoral process is a civil activity, so we don't ordinarily need to expect that when we have personnel at the polling units, they'll be carrying arms. No, that's not the right practice. So that's why our polling units, you always see officials that are not armed. It is only on the outer corridor you have those that are armed, just in case there are issues that those within the polling unit are unable to, um, um, de-escalate. They call on support from their colleagues outside the outer corridor to come in to help out with the situation. If not, we hope that one day, as we continue to, engage, that we'll come to that level. Yeah, we don't need on election day the deployment of the number of security you see on election day, and more so, we don't even need to probably, say it's a work-free day or make it a public holiday and no movement, nothing. So at least while that business are going on, you can easily just go cast your vote and go back to your destination. So these are what we're actually looking for. But because of our style And is it culture or mindset? You see the level of deployment we are having as if we are actually going to war or to counter terrorism.
Mindset, because like I always also speak about that, it's a multi-stakeholder engagement. INEC cannot do this alone, of course. We always say that, and we speak about from the side of the media, and also where we have security operatives, civil society, ensuring that there's proper sensitization to tackle these issues head on with INEC as well. But let's stick on to part of the conversations we're also looking at. The continuous voter registration exercise is something that INEC has put in so far, and INEC has recently extended the continuous voter exercise by 2 additional weeks. Why was that necessary? Was it to give room for more? Because I know that you had a lot of registration coming for Ekiti. Was it to give room for more for Osun State?
Okay, the extension of the exercise was not to give room for more for Osun State. As we speak, the registration for Osun has actually been concluded, and they have about 2 point. I can't get the exact fraction now, but they have over 2 million registered voters now, I think from about 1.9. Actually, the extension of the CVR exercise was to actually, like, when INEC face certain timelines for activities, and we do it in order to ensure, first of all, that people have enough time for them to do what they are supposed to do, and to also create time for the commission to be able to prepare and submit the register in good time for stakeholders to see it. However, remember, we actually started this exercise last year in August. That was August 18th to be precise, 2025. And we are supposed to round up the exercise June 10th. Um, this year, 2026. Sorry, July 10, 2026. But somehow, because of a lot of persons, the teeming population, that we are unable to register, because a lot of persons have done the pre-registration online, but we are unable to complete it in person. And the agitation is there, and a lot of persons have been complaining. They go to our offices. The bottleneck there is not making it seamless for them. So, however, the complaints actually came because we monitor these exercises and we see the way it's going to. Definitely, the exercise was not extended, but it wasn't just extended. And something too was actually done. There was an update on the online platform now for self-service, because ordinarily before now, apart from those who were previously registered, who probably want to do transfer, apply for replacement of their card, or do an update, um, these they can do online exclusively. Why those who are registering for the very first time, we only probably do a pre-registration online, then find themselves at any INEC designated center for them to complete their biometrics. But now the portal has been upgraded to now accommodate them to complete their registration online without necessarily going to any INEC designated center. So, which is a plus in this exercise. So it now made it seamless. So for a first-time voter who is registering for the very first time, as far as you have a device that is connected to the internet and is equipped with the apps that can make you go through, you can complete your registration online. But for those doing it online, they have to first of all make sure they have their NIN and that their NIN is authentic. So that is when that particular aspect can allow them to complete their registration online. I'm also in these 2 weeks too. Weekends are also included. So both Saturday and Sunday. So as we speak now, this is Sunday. So our officials will be there to also assist those that are going to INEC offices to register. But those doing it online is anytime they can do it online. And we hope by the 26th that everybody that wants to get registered should be able to. But one thing is certain. At the end of the exercise, the collection of the PVC will be at the INEC offices designated for the local government area that covers the place where they want to vote.
Like identity theft will come up when you allow people to have this particular services. So how secure is this system? And then for people who are not in the urban centers, in the rural areas, are they also able to key into this particular initiative of the self-service, if you look at the epileptic nature of our connection? So the question is, how secure is the system, and then what inclusivity for people who are not in the urban centers for this particular service.
Okay. Talking about how secure, you talk in terms of identity theft, that's not possible. If you have listened just now, I said the prerequisite for you to be able to even use the portal to complete your registration online is your NIN. Remember, NIN has its own due diligence process in getting you registered, your biometrics and everything. So first of all, the system ensures that your NIN is verified and brings out your information. That is what we will now use to now start. For those that are using that portal, they will definitely let you know the process. So it makes it quite, intact. So it cannot just be breached easily. So your NIN is a prerequisite. So if you don't have it, you can't complete your registration online. So what you do, you have to look for an INEC and designated center to do that. Then for those that are in far-flung area, like we said, if you can't, or maybe in your area there's network issue, you just look for a way closer to where you can get the network to be able to do it. Or maybe better still, maybe some business centers should be able to offer that service as the case may be. Or better still, you look for the INEC office that is closest to you to be able to do that. What this invariably says that it has actually, or rather drastically reduced pressure on the various INEC offices we have by opening up the space or the means of getting registered. So in the terms of assurance, yes, the system can actually be breached because all this have been taken into consideration before that update was done for people to be able to access that portal to complete their registration.
A whole lot of confidence around the security measures put in place for this particular self-service. But one concern, like we've been talking about, is around the issue of the votes. Let's go back to vote buying because we're looking at Oshun as well. All of this is also preparation for Oshun. Some Nigerians, they argue that poverty fuels vote buying. And now we're having voter education. We're also having where we're calling people en masse to come out, get registered, have their voter cards so that they can come out to put out. Can this voter education alone solve the problem of vote buying? That's one. And secondly, are politicians cooperating enough to see that there's no voter inducement so that we can have that process seamless?
Well, let me just put it this way. Just as the commission is actually doing or trying to upgrade and do more to ensure that our system, to increase the credibility of the process we are using, to ensure its integrity, and to ensure that no one sabotages the process. So also, some of these politicians are also looking for ways, to subvert this process. Are you getting it? So, to me, I will look at it as probably it's not in the best interest of some of them that we are doing this. Okay, but we will not relent to continue to do what we can to ensure that the process is actually, fraud-free in terms of what they do. Then, in terms of vote buying, yes, the much I would say INEC can do, okay, is probably what we are actually doing right now, like using your medium now as a way, because those listening now, we get to know about what we are saying, and also um, uh, collaborating organizations like civil society groups, our traditional leaders, our religious leaders, opinion leaders as well, public commentators too. I think this is another thing for them to also join their voices in speaking against these menace. But then you hardly hear the politicians speak against it. Okay, you only hear them cry, especially maybe after election. If they are not the ones who won, they complain about others who did vote buying. But meanwhile, they were involved in the process. Probably maybe what the extent to which they have contributed wasn't as much as the other person. But then the we on our part too, our own voter education strategy is not just on election day we are taking it now. We are actually starting from the grassroots, so to speak, by I want to start taking our campaign and sensitization even to schools, and that we have actually a template has been developed by one organization, KDI, to with the commission for training of NYC members, and also maybe down to secondary school by start teaching them, because this has to get our sister organization, which is NOAA now, and every other organization that is in the task to ensure proper civic responsibilities are upheld. So by so doing, you find out that the mindset will change. Because let me just give a clear example now. Our honorable chairman was in India in the first few months of his appointment as the chairman, where he went to observe their electoral process there. And because in India they don't use like here now where people talk about electronic transmission of results, they don't do electronic transmission of results, but they do electronic voting, where they don't have conventional ballot boxes just the way we have, but theirs is a machine where they identify the party they are going to vote for and do their thumbprint. The machine records it and a slip is generated. So these slips are later what is collected, and on a later date it is now sorted and counted. So the chairman posed the question to them, where do you now keep these slips? He said, yes, there's a place they warehouse it before the counting. He said, where, how secured is it? He said it's secured. What and what? Who ensures the security? He said the police will be there and every other thing. Then they have CCTV. He said, what about if they compromise? He said they won't compromise. He said, are you sure? He said, okay, assuming they compromise, what was the sanction? He said, if they compromise, they will be suspended for some months or something like that. Say suspension. He said that's enough to cause a dent on the image of that person and probably who he represents. So, he not like, wow. He said in Nigeria, even if the person compromises and the person is sanctioned, maybe even jail the person for 2 years, he said they will still do it. So it has to do with our mindset and how the way we see things. So I think that's another thing, and probably maybe very very soon we just all hands being on deck, working together, ensuring that proper democratic values and democratic institutions are protected and upheld in terms of their working or operating structures. We ensure that most of these things will be in place. We don't even need to cry about it, that if you are caught in it, you have yourself to blame. The shame will be upon you. But right now, like they said poverty has actually been weaponized, and because of that, you see a lot of persons openly say this is what I want to do. Because I was on social media recently where I saw, I think on TikTok, where a lady held the mother. I said, tie the mother's hand and leg, that the mother is not going out. So it was not like someone I would say, because the mother said that she was going out to, collect money so I can vote for one person. Although it was a joke kind of thing, but that's exactly what is happening. So persons are preparing now to like maybe counting what they want to get. But these are the things we can't go into individuals' houses now to now start knowing who wants to do this or who wants to do that. So probably as they are listening, we just want them to let them know this. Look, that for every amount somebody wants to pay you for your vote, know that that amount is not worth your vote, because your vote is far more than that. It might look nothing to you, but it has its impact. So they should put that in mind. Yes, if they give you 10,000, 20 or 30,000 naira, what can it cannot even give you a bag of rice or whatever. Is that what you're going to take for the next 4 years? So we want them to look at some of all these indices and some of all these things, put it in mind, because not everything. You're voting, although they are doing it on behalf of us, like me now, I can't vote on election day, not because the law bars me from it, but because for out of um, probably neutrality, I don't vote. But then mine is to ensure that you get the materials and we get you the staff that will ensure that it's properly organized. Then you out there will have to go and ensure the proper thing is done.
Very long stretch of people to understand what it is like to go out to vote and understand what it holds for them. Because if you have proper structure in place, proper governance system, everyone as a nation stands to enjoy when you know the power that's in your votes.
Most definitely. I know, talking about strengthening our electoral integrity, I am aware that the INEC recently commenced a 2-day workshop for workers on anti-corruption and sensitization for its staff as part of its efforts to strengthen election integrity for 2027. It was themed Corruption-Free Elections, Integrity Matters, with a focus on transparency and accountability. So my question to you is, will this particular initiative, this workshop and training, will it help in terms of curbing voters' buying and inducement in our elections, especially looking ahead to 2027?
I think you're referring to, the workshop we had with ICPC, I guess. Did you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay, yeah. I recently, I think a few days back, the ICPC were in the commission to engage the commission on some of all these issues so that our staff will be well aware of what's expected of them during the elections. But however, even on the part of the commission, we, as part of the demands from staff, we have our condition of service that spells out the proper behavior for staff in terms of integrity, neutrality, accountability, and all the positive attributes that is needed of them in the discharge of their duty. Yes, on election day, you can't tell. There might be some who will still flout some of these expectations from them. And that is why before any major exercise, every staff is expected, especially those involved, to sign the oath of neutrality, which we refer to as the AC 17. So we expect everyone. Apart from that, there are a lot internally that we engage the staff with for them to do the best when the opportunity calls. And on our own, we have a lot of staff have been, we found wanting for improper behavior or dealings or engagement, and the commission actually took the necessary step to ensure that such staffs were disciplined and also to forestall such occurrences. Well, like I would say, there is no act to tear the mind's construction on the face, so you cannot tell who is going to do this or do that. But however, no stone is left unturned in terms of ensuring that everyone is kept in check and on guard on why discharge. That's why, like Oshun, now that we are preparing for elections, apart from the ad hoc staff we are deploying, there are supervisors watching over them. There are area supervisors watching over them. There will be monitors coming from neighboring states, and these include the resident electoral commissioners, and of course, national commissioners will be there. And apart from that, the commission keeps on training, and in some of these training sections through capacity building, the admonition also comes into for them to uphold every high standard of responsibility in the discharge of their duties, because the mission of the commission is to conduct free, fair, credible, and inclusive election that is acceptable to all. And the vision is to be among the best or one of the best election management body globally. So if all this is anything to go by, then we have to uphold every high standard of morality in the discharge of our duty, including myself.
Grateful to be one of the best election management body across the globe, which is the best thing we could look forward to as a nation, because it gives us an edge and shows transparency and accountability properly put in place. You've talked about offenders being going to be prosecuted when they get into the vote buying issue, all of those concerns, which also should put fears on the minds of those who are intending to get into the vote buying mindset, which is something we're looking forward to. And just like you said, the media should expose as much as they see. So we look forward to seeing more exposure coming out to play for INEC or coming out to play for media practitioners who will be on ground to monitor the process. I've covered elections severally, and I've seen this right in front of me in different patterns, different formats. But like we always do, we give feedback to INEC and tell the story just like we see on the field. And we look forward to seeing Oshun do far much better and consolidate on the gains of Ekiti election. But let's look beyond Oshun elections because, of course, it's also a way to build up to 2027 general election in terms of the CVR and all of that, to see that elections comes out very strong. The CVR, of course, like you said, is not just because of the Osun election, it's also preparations also to guide towards 2027 and ensure that people understand the mindset to owning a voter card and valuing their votes, and not allow the mindset of poverty take up that place of choosing the right person through your vote to come. And of course, you've talked about the technological innovations which Nigerians should expect, how you're consolidating on what you have on ground, where the affairs are laid from being, just like my colleague said, thefts. Identity theft is something Nigerians should not worry, because those are considerations the Commission has looked at, and there are also a lot of reforms INEC is also looking at to do, because of course, when you plan, it's a multi-stakeholder thing. Other stakeholders also have little challenges here and there. I know where INEC had put out a stern warning to one of the logistics company who works with for that had delays, and he had given stern warning, the INEC chairman, to logistics failure, that INEC cannot do their own end, and then when it comes to delivering the materials, it becomes a problem. So what message would INEC say they have for first-time voters who are coming into voting for the first time, whether it's at the Osun election or at preparations or getting into the 2027 election, with all of these measures you've put in place through your reforms as a commission?
All right. For first-time voters, I want to say, for those who just registered now, I want to say congratulations for the opportunity to be able to exercise your voting rights, whether in Osun or maybe in the forthcoming general election next year. So when you receive your voter card, the first thing, try to, if you are not used to the particular polling unit you are going to vote, you ask questions, especially maybe from those who have been doing it, or if you are in that area, you find out, especially when you are used to the terrain. So on election day, ordinarily the exercise, as we've been doing, is between 8:30 in the morning and 2:30 in the afternoon. So it's expected that where you are voting is not far from where you're staying, because somehow movement is restricted on election day. So to avoid harassment, it's better let it be a walking distance from where you stay. Or if it's far, probably you have to, maybe a day before then, you can, relocate to that point where, it's just a stone throw, a walking distance for you to your polling unit. So when you get there, you'll find that the polling unit, our officials are there. There are other persons you find there, party agents. You also see the media group, journalists will be around. You see observers around. Then other voters like you will also be there. So a line or a queue will be in place, especially when they are much. And depending on how the setup is, some might even use ropes to demarcate where the voters should queue in order for them to approach the officials' table for them to, continue with the process. Then in some places too, a copy of the register will be pasted on strategic points at that polling unit, so that voters can, before approaching the desk, they can check their name on the list. That makes accreditation process easier, and more so to be double sure that your name is in that particular polling unit you are coming to exercise your voting rights. Then when you're sure of that, you queue and you'll be controlled by one of the INEC official at the polling unit. So when you get there, the first thing is that they will identify you using the BVAS, which is the bimotor voter accreditation device. So there's one thing I want to let every voter know. Accreditation is, the BVAS must accredit you. If the BVAS doesn't accredit you, you won't be able to vote. Okay. So once the BVAS, so there are two main ways to identify you. Is either they use your fingerprint. If your information pops up, okay, it accredits you immediately digitally. Or if it doesn't use that, it uses your photograph. So they use the beavers to, place over your face just like they want to take your photograph, and it identifies you. In most cases, the photograph aspect is faster and quicker. It takes a few seconds. Once your photo is in the system already, it identifies you, and you are accredited electronically. Then the next stage is for the next official there to the APO1 now to now check the manual register that is printed, for them to now check the box by your name. You also see your photograph is there. They will check it. Then indelible ink is applied on your thumb. Then the presiding officer, who is the person coordinating that unit, will now give you a ballot paper. Uh, you have to also be a bit attentive to check if that ballot paper is signed and is stamped and dated by the presiding officer. If not, if a ballot paper that is not signed, stamped, and dated finds its way inside the ballot box during sorting and counting, it will be believed that it is not original, that is fake or not authentic. So ensure, watch the back. And also, the way the presiding officer will even fold it, he's going to pre-fold it with the back side of it where he stamped and signed, will be the one that is visible, not inside it. So that's what you now take to a cubicle. That cubicle ensures that whoever you're going to print for is not visible to other persons. And the cubicle is put in such a way that nobody sees what you are doing, not party agents, not the security agencies, not the INEC officials, or even the other voters that are on the queue. So when you get into the box, the voting cubicle, you thumbprint on the side where you have the space for the thumbprint. Then you fold back just the way the presiding officer folded and gave to you. Then you take it out from there. You come to where the ballot box is placed and place it inside and drop. So once you're done with that, you've excised your franchise. But if you now choose to wait around to see how things go, the rules provides that you give a distance of about 300 meters from that area so that other persons that have not done theirs be able to do it, and also not to cause any form of chaos around it. So you give space. And also, after they are done by 2:30, if there are no other voter on queue as at 2:30, once it's 2:30, sorting and counting begins. Thereafter, you may decide to just come around and hear how the sorting and counting is done. So once that is done, the presiding officer comes out with the result sheet, where he enters the figures scored by each party on the result sheet. It is now tabulated and calculated. Then every party figures is called out aloud. The one that is done, the presiding officer will sign the result sheet. The party agents will also countersign. That result sheet is what is now snapped using the beavers. That is what is now transmitted electronically to what we call the INEC result viewing portal, which is the IREF. So that is to ensure that whatever happens in that polling unit, every other person that is not in that unit can access and view it online to know what transpired in that polling unit. So especially like you that is there and wants to see it, you can view it. If you have access to the internet immediately, you view it and see what happened. Then everywhere around the world, as far as you have connection to the internet, you can know what happened at that polling unit. So that result is transmitted, and the presiding officer from that polling unit will now take
Mr. Efoga. Before we wrap up, you said quite extensively, you've given us an education, if you like. But many people who are apathy in terms of voting, the reason they tell you is because they are scared their vote would not count and it's a waste of their time. So what message do you have for them as a final take-home message in terms of how their votes can count and it's not a waste of time?
Okay, I just want to say this. I think this is just it. If the vote does not count, there will be nothing like vote buying. There will be nothing like vote buying. If it doesn't count, nobody will buy your vote. Because if it doesn't count, nobody will bother paying money for people's vote. I want them to take this in mind. If the vote does not count, nobody will buy it. It's because it counts. That is why people are paying for votes. So they should take that. So that's why if you want to vote, make sure you don't get paid for you to be able to vote, because your vote will count.
The mindset runs that votes will not count. Most times when you listen to conversations around citizens, there's a bit of fear. We'll do this, we'll do that, we can. But just like you've put out very straight, there's a right way to go, that you understand that your vote actually counts. That's why people go all the way, spend money to actually buy that vote. I've been at a forum where it was raised around the issue of vote buying, and the concern was if Nigerians understand this mathematics or of how political class buy votes, they should demand more money, collect the money, and decide their conscience. It was just at a forum where this was spoken about. But you've made it very clear, your vote actually counts as Nigerians. So please come out in your numbers, just like Mr. Wilfred Ifoga has said, come out in your number and vote, because the enable environment is there by INEC, a lot of voter education out there, sensitization, and you understand what the process is. And this is where I want to say a very big thank you to the Deputy Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission, Mr. Wilfred Ifoga. Thank you so much for your time, for bringing us up to speed, telling Nigerians what they need to understand in terms of preparations to Osun, because we're counting down to Osun already. And just like you said, from the listed items for what's guidelines for Osun, a lot has been done already. Almost half of it's gone past time already, and it's just a build-up for it. Thank you for also ensuring that first-timers understand what their role is and how to get themselves registered and get out to vote on election day and get the answers to the right person who they trust can give them the best leadership and governance across all cadre of governments there. Thank you so much for your time with us. It was a pleasure having you join us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, from what you've heard from the Deputy Director there for INEC, there he said a whole lot, and I'm sure Nigerians understand it better now.
Of course, like I said, it was an education, because many of us are not aware of all of these issues you have raised, especially around the CBR and the cleaning up of the exercise, and of course even the digital system that has been introduced now. Many of us were not aware of this, so this is a very commendable effort on his part, and we really appreciate him. And one thing he said that was very profound for me is, we always think that our votes do not count. But he has said, if it doesn't count, then why do you think they're paying money for? That shows actually is important.
There's a whole lot.
So of course, we hope we have to, as electorate,
change our mindset.
Very, very. It begins with the mind. We have to be very conscious of the information we absorb in, because when you absorb that information and you make it a reality, then it's what you see. If you believe that your vote would not count, then most likely it might not count. But if you have the positive mindset that I would believe this process and it's going to work out for me, and you shall see that it actually works out for you.
Okay, well, from what we have there, it shows that the integrity of every election depends not only on the electoral process or the electoral umpire himself. Of course, the electoral process has to be there, but it's not only the electoral umpire, that's INEC, but also on the commitment of political actors, the media, security agencies, and citizens to uphold democratic values. As Osun prepares to elect a new governor, voters are reminded to take advantage of extended continuous voter registration exercise and reject every form of vote buying or electoral malpractice if they want to see the best leadership come to play for them.
Yes, indeed, because democracy, we know, thrives on citizens' participation, and responsible participation is very important, whether it is through your vote or through your voice, or through making sure that you do not get yourself involved in electoral malpractices. All of this will go a very long way in strengthening our democracy here in Nigeria, and it's going to help us get the country, Nigeria, to be the country of our dreams.
Of course, if you want Nigeria to be the country of your dreams, because you see a lot of things and you want that to replicate in Nigeria, it starts with you as an individual. Starts with our mindset. You need to start changing our minds and have positive mindset to good things. Just like Mr. Ifoga said, I'm looking forward to seeing INEC being one of the best election management body in the world. And what a way to go!
It's not rocket science. The people that do it, we already did. It's a certain template you follow. So if we're able to follow that, then you see yourself at the top. If you work hard at it, and of course you are sincere in your motive, then the Lord is going to help us to become the best.
Of course, that's where we draw the curtains of this particular segment of the program. We'll come up and we'll bring a very interesting conversation that you won't want to miss. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this time out.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Usoro.
On global television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust our multi-platform news broadcast real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This
At Wichtech Cables, we don't just make cables, we deliver excellence. Our products are built with advanced technology, trusted for their unmatched quality and durability. With a wide range of cables, swift delivery, and continuous innovation, we stay ahead of the market demand. We are proudly Nigerian, fully indigenous, yet world-class. Backed by a professional team, strong technical support, and a deep commitment to customer satisfaction. Wichtech Cables is more than a brand, it's a promise. Wichtech Cables, quality cables better than the best.
At Aerogym Shoe Factory, excellence starts from the ground up. Located at number 1 Pound Road behind Nigeria Correctional Service, Aba, Abia State. We produce 1,500 high-quality shoes every single day. Paramilitary shoes, safety boots, desert boots, ankle shoes, back-to-school footwear. All crafted with state-of-the-art equipment and built for strength, comfort, and durability. For reliable footwear that stands the test of time, choose Aerogym Shoes for better product, strong steps, smart style. For inquiries, call 091-264-53399 or 070-3009-3944 or 080-6573-8374 or call 081-3167-3668. Email info@aerogym.com. Website www.aerogymdesign.com. Aerogym. Walk with confidence. Walk with pride.
It's good to have you join us back. Of course, it's still Global Morning, and like we said, a whole lot of discussion lined up for you here on the program. And up next for us is to look at Nigeria's growing population. Are we prepared for the future? What is it looking like? Because a lot of questions have been asked about what are our statistics in terms of population. Do we understand what our population is like so that it can guide our minds to what provisions needs to be made for the number of people? Because on a daily, people are giving birth. On a daily, people are dying. What's the actual number of people we have as a nation? And this is also in line with the fact that it was World Population Day, and which comes up every July 11th across the world, where the world marks the World Population Day, an annual observance by the United Nations aimed at encouraging conversations around population trends and how they affect development. While the day has passed, of course, we know it was just yesterday, the issues it highlights remains just as relevant, especially for a country like Nigeria, where population growth continues to shape our country, healthcare, education, employment, and the environment. So we're looking at this point. We are going to be asking the very simple question, but also very important at the same time. Is Nigeria prepared for its growing population? Of course, we want to find out if we're prepared enough, because of course in a day, like I said, people die on a daily, people are giving birth. Birth comes in the same space. How do we put out the strategy to deal with it? And of course, Mukhtar is also still here.
Yes, that intro was I was thinking so much when you were reeling out those intros, because the first question they even asked is, how many are we in Nigeria?
As a nation.
As a nation. The last census that was conducted was way back 2006. So we don't even have, in quotes, an accurate data to know how many people are in Nigeria. We've had estimates of about 236, over 300 million, and we've had estimated that by 2030 we'll grow to be some of the top 5 largest nations in the world. So that's a growing concern if we do not look at it critically, because if you're talking about population, it's a double-edged sword for nations. It's either that population will be something that makes you as a nation in countries like India, in countries like China, Indonesia, that have got this very large population and have been able to use it to the benefit of the people to make it something that is one that has developed their nation. And we have other countries, of course, that are highly populated, but they've been confronted with a lot of challenges of insecurity, challenges of development, challenges of poverty, and that's the question that we ask Nigeria: where do we want to belong in that divide? Is it the ones that have used population for their own benefit, or we're going to be languishing? And don't forget, Nigeria is actually, sadly, among the nations that are struggling with this population, because the estimate is that over 120 by the UN says we are below the poverty line, which means Nigeria is the world capital of poverty, sadly to say. So that's a very worrying trend. So, but the question, all of the issues is the fact that if we do not have accurate statistics to back our data, how can we plan for the nation Nigeria? How can we be able to get development to reach all of the people, the underserved communities, the people who are not captured in the data? How can we get that service to reach them without knowing our growing number and the accurate number? So that's the question we're going to be asking today, and we hope to give answers to that particular question on your take.
Okay, while we're giving answers to all of this question, like Mukhtar has just rightly stated out, we know that Nigeria stands as one of Africa's largest.
We're actually Africa's largest.
So Africa's largest nation, and we have the population challenge, just like you mentioned. No accurate one to say this is the exact number, and of course we have one of the youngest countries in the world. We stand as one of the youngest countries in the world who that have youthful population representing
over 70%
potential, but only if that matches the right investment. Because like I mentioned in my particular intro, is the fact that we need to understand our population, so we know how to break in the provision for the young minds or people who stay or who occupy this space, because we need to look at investment in terms of education, because we have the youngest people come out to play as well. Education, healthcare, employment, infrastructure, and also sustainable development. All of these concerns, because we have rapid population growth, and we cannot throw that away, because when you have population, you also need to think about resources. How do you put these people to be active, have enough funds in their hands to run with all the sectors, of course, because like I said, education, all of those things come to play. So we need to also understand that, and then we need to understand why population really matters and how we can take advantage of the population and also give back to the people and the number of people who are there, because we have a lot of young minds who have expertise, who are talented, but they are scattered somewhere, because of course we don't understand the number of them. We don't have an actual average account of these particular Nigerians, so we just have them end up on the streets, in some cases end up doing the wrong things, because we don't understand or we don't have a data to walk through and get them in the right direction, and that needs to be tackled head on.
Of course, when we talk about population, they're not just numbers, like we said. They are infrastructure, they are schools, healthcare facilities, and all of those demands.
Sure.
Those are what define our population. And one thing we've done over time is to look at our population as just how many people do we have in Nigeria, so that, okay, we can know maybe for elections, politicians will look at numbers for elections, but beyond elections, you should look at them as allocation of resources, because someone said politics is nothing beyond allocation of resources. So these numbers should be looked at in terms of how do we serve these people, because as a leader, as a government, you are elected to serve the people. And if you are not aware of the number of people you have, then you can't serve them correctly. And this is why experts have said our census is long overdue. Of course, we've heard the National Population Commission is saying that they have been working plans, even from the previous administration of the late former President Buhari, of conducting a census. But that has not become reality yet, due to some challenges. But that is why the experts have said we need to, even the UN actually, in commemoration of this day, they put out a statement and said Nigeria should stop guessing our numbers, which is what we've been doing, guesswork. So they say for us to have adequate preparations made for our population, the first thing you need to do is to know the numbers in terms of statistics, accurate statistics, so that you can plan for them. Like I told you earlier, if you look at countries like India, and you talked about
China,
of course, those people have done over 2.1 billion in population, over a billion people in terms of population. And what have they done with their population? If you look at a country like China and India, if you take them back 50 years ago, they were not what they used to be. China's revolution that we've seen is something that happened in the 70s, and it was due to the country saying that we have a large number of people, but these people have not been able to turn our fortunes. So they decided to, as a matter of urgency, to look inwards and be able to use their population for the betterment of the people. So that's something we need to do also here in Nigeria. Our population can be used as a stepping stone to greater responsibility and greater awareness. But then, are we doing that? That's the question, Anita. And you agree with me that we need to have we still have a long way to go. Even though, of course, we've seen a lot of innovations from the government. And even the First Lady yesterday, she came out to say we should enroll and get our NIN, and that will help the government in identifying the number of people we have in Nigeria, so that the government can in turn bring developmental strides for the people. Beyond just identification of the NIN, even if the people have enrolled, the ones that have enrolled already, what are the initiatives that have been in place, and how many of them are aware? Because one issue we have in Nigeria is the awareness gap. Because some of these initiatives that the government have even put out, I think some of them have not really been brought to the fore like they should. So people are not even aware of how they can key into these particular initiatives to benefit our humongous population. We have 70% youth. So this 70%, there are more than enough people to turn the fortune of this country. But then we have to use the population effectively to get the results that we intend to get annually.
Well, I'm sorry, population is one thing, just like you mentioned. I was just trying to play back in my head. I saw on socials where the First Lady was also talking about collaborative way of looking out for people, saying that the weight is so much on the government alone.
True.
And she called out for potential. I'm trying to see if I can get that video to MCR to get us on play to get to understand. Where she mentioned where the government has shouldered a whole lot of things. She raised an idea some weeks back where she said people should look at small scale businesses, and of course the social media was awash with a whole lot of things that came out to play, from the
there was a lot of backlash.
Backlash in the whole thing. And then talking about the population now in terms of how these things can play out. Look at our population is really
it's huge.
And then a lot of concerns are too, how do we get to reach the poorest of the poor? In terms of all those provisions, like you mentioned, healthcare is really important. If we have a statistics of what it's like for the suburbs, across every state, there are suburbs who don't have
they're not even covered.
You understand? And then something like I sit back to look at myself as a person, and I look at you as a person, and I see we are human beings, but different bodies, different faces,
Yes.
nose, and so I'm always asking, God is actually very wonderful, but how do we turn all of this and ensure that it is even across sector, that everybody is carried along, nobody's left behind? But of course, we cannot do that if we don't have proper
Numbers.
statistics of numbers, because with that numbers being in place, you can look at housing, making housing quite affordable for people to have shelter.
Look at Nigeria now, we have a housing deficit.
You know, so
and
some
how many people
concerns.
are homeless? We don't even know the number of
We have those
homeless people we
IDPs
have.
as well.
The IDPs
which
that
is
need to be
also
integrated.
That's the accessibility to road. Good enough, the government is doing a lot of road infrastructures, ensuring that there's good road network, accessibility to cities, highways, super highways, all of those put in place. But we also need to look at how that gets into the communities.
True, because it's not only about the
It's about the highways,
urban communities.
Urban communities will get it, but when would the rural ones get all this accessibility? And what about government? It's not just about at the executive level. It goes down to even the local government's level as well. Accessibility for this population we have across the states. We have 36 states and the FCT, of course, which shows we are here in the FCT. We know what it's like in terms of road network when you go out of the city center.
Yes.
Yes, the FCT minister is in a whole lot to see how the expansion of the road network can get
Across
into
the city.
across the goes into the suburbs as well, to see that people have accessibility. For me, for the farmers as well, from the farm produce and getting to the market. All of that covers around population. Electricity isn't that thing you need to look at. We cannot take that away. How do we get it evenly across, for people to have good lightning? Because it's very frustrating at night where you get back home from a very long day and you've had a stressful day, and then you get back home and then there's no electricity. And because it's not just even in the suburbs, even in the city center, some parts still struggle with the shuffling of life. Today's our off day.
Exactly.
It's our on day. And for me, I'm like, do we have to do it the 1 day on, 1 day off?
So some places it's
2 days
2 days on, 1 day off, or 2 days off.
So for the 2 days, you're actually in total darkness, except.
And the reason why, Aniti,
like
is still boiling down to the numbers. Some of these people on the grid, the numbers are even too many. So, and that's because some of the numbers are not even accurately known. So we are generating electricity for a number that is greater.
That's available.
Exactly. But what the demand is greater than what is available. So if you are having a more accurate data, that would help you in even serving these people in all aspects. And you talked about farming. A country like Nigeria that has got over 200 million plus people is not able to feed itself. That is not a good one. And that is also I wouldn't say government, because you talked earlier about
it's across board. It's not just executive.
But the farmers have told you that we are willing. Well, issues around insecurity, issues around all those clashes have also exacerbated. And don't forget, migration is another question you hear in terms of population. Yeah. Other people are leaving from their own place to other places for greener pastures, literally. And that greener pasture has also heaped on resource control, which is the reason why you see farmers' headers clashes and all those clashes. So if we're able to have these statistics in check and we're able to provide for these people, you would see that even the insecurity that we're suffering as a nation would have would reduce. We can't have it at a stop, at least, but then the barest minimum is something that is attainable.
Okay, well, a lot of people want to say population is really not the problem. It is how
you manage the population.
It isn't necessarily not the problem, but the challenge comes when development doesn't grow at the same pace as the population, because that's what Mutana have been trying to establish. It's good enough that we have a population, but how do we manage this population? How do we get it evenly spread in terms of all the provisions that we want to see across the world? And that's why this conversation around the World Population Day aren't really about counting the people, of course, like we've mentioned earlier. We've established that. They're also about asking whether governments are planning adequately for the people they already have and those who are yet to come, because like I said, on a daily people are giving birth because we have marriages
every day,
every Saturday. Sometimes some have even gone beyond Saturday, even the weekdays.
Even the weekdays, very interesting.
Get married, and of course, when two adults meet, of course, the child will come in the picture, and they have to cater for that child. So all of the time. So in fact, one of the biggest messages from this year's World Convention is that population should never be viewed as simply as numbers. It's about the people and the provisions made for them, their basic needs, their hopes, their opportunities, and the quality of life. Let me give you an example. There are times where we go on the streets and then we're driving past and then you see people on the streets. It's really heartbreaking to see people who are supposed to have equal opportunity go to school but can't afford school. Because maybe their parents are trying to make ends meet. You still see some women on the streets trying to hawk little things here and there. But yes, we know that food brings in a lot of income, generates a lot of income. But those that, for instance, do granuts, garden eggs,
and the rest of them.
So I've did a math in my head.
Yes.
How much are these things, and how many people patronize them in a day for them to be able to raise? Don't forget there's feeding. First thing first that comes to the mind of any other person is how my family
how can we feed?
Because one thing that takes the major source of our income is feeding.
True.
Because if you feed, you're energized, you can go out to work, you can fend for yourself. Then when you feed, the next thing you think of is, what is my life going to be like? What's the next phase of my life? Which is opportunities and hope. You're looking for to what my life should look like at the end of the day. I've been saying now, so what next in my life? So
yes.
Those are the concerns that need answers to ensuring that that's why we talk about the fact that census really matters. And one issue that kept coming around this year's World Population Day is that Nigeria's lack of a recent national consensus or census rather is a major problem. The last population census was conducted in 2006. 2006, this is 2020.
That's 20 whole years ago.
2 decades. And then since then, we've largely relied on estimates. Why is that such a major concern? It's a concern because opportunities are not even. People are suffering, and then, of course, cost of living is on the high side. And so we need to start looking at issues around planning and seeing how governments can understand. Because, like we said, governments cannot do this alone. It has to be a multi-sectoral approach. Everyone has to bring in their wealth of experience, what they think they can do on the side to support whatever government policies are being put in place. So that the population we have, because you that are going to get married, you that are going to have a child, you need to also think for yourself first. So government comes into the picture for you. So every individual needs to start sitting up and setting the pace right. That's okay. Is my life now? Government is there. Government is also at that level. Well, me at this level with my family, because every society starts with the family. So you need to start looking out for your family, yourself, and then the government's policies can now come in for you, and then you look at measures, because of course there are grants, that you can also take. So you need to be creative
and innovative
because of course we have a whole of ICT that's coming to change a lot of things. The AI, of course, coming to play. So you need to be creative. Get back to your shell. Get back to your creative mindset and innovative mindset. So that you can find the level playing field for you to get opportunities. Because I read something somewhere, which is something I always carried back up my mind. Dress the way you want to be addressed. Dress up, look smart, because opportunities will find one who is prepared.
Of course.
So when you prepare your mindset, drop the challenges, because your back cannot always be on the ground and you expect yourself to stand tall. But if you have understanding that, let me just be doing something somewhere, so when opportunities find me, it will meet me at a point of preparedness.
And that success
and then
will
you can deliver, and then you can have your success come to me, and then your life is on a sustained platform that that there's a projection for you as an individual, and that can cascade to the next generation after you.
I know why this is particular. What you're talking about is particularly important. Is the fact that this year's theme for the World Population Day is dealing around young people, and how the world, young people in emerging economies like Nigeria can be able to be self-sustaining. And what you have talked about is just the reality, because how many of our young people have actually become ready for opportunities? We've heard issues around saying our young people are unemployable, even though some of those things are not really rooted in reality, but there are elements of truth to them. You see a young person who is supposed to be ready for the job market, but you ask him to write a letter, an employment letter, and he can't even write it. But then, I'm not only blaming the young people, we also have to bring it back to the government, because we talked about how the population can either be an asset or a liability. So the question now is, for the young people who are coming up, what is the level of education what is the quality of education that they are receiving? Because it's what you give to them as a nation that they bring back into the nation. We've seen that our young people have thrived all across the world previously. But if in Nigeria here we're not giving them that room to thrive, you're not giving them the quality education, you're not giving them access to healthcare, you're not giving them a social security, then how do you expect the young people to be able to get to the level of capacity where they can deliver back into the country?
Yeah.
So it's very dicey actually.
Okay, well, it's very dicey to look at, but we don't have a choice. But we need to keep hammering on these things. So we need to find a lasting solution or ways to soft land, soft land, and give ourselves that needed space. Because of course, like I said, on a daily population will keep coming, and you cannot throw that away. Well, the United Nations Population Fund stopped relying on estimates and have called for conduct of a credible census to ensure that we have this. Because with reliable data, just like we've mentioned, they can also find a way of coming in to understand or help us navigate through.
They can't help you if you can't help yourself. How do you want us to help you? Give us the numbers. You don't have them.
Give us what's that the architects to do call
the design.
The design. So
give us a plan.
Yes. Give us a plan to work with, because if there's a plan to work with, they can now know where to guide you professionally to say, okay, look at the things. It's not about
look at our recommendations. They don't work blindly. Yes. They don't use estimates to develop communities, because if you use estimates, you get it wrong. So you have to have credible data.
Okay, while we're looking forward to having credible data, we need to understand how this plays out. The young population needs opportunity, and they don't need to have challenges in front, because they have a lot they're dealing with already. But with opportunities put in the right direction, it gives them an edge to understand that life can be good. Like I always say, well, life can be good. One thing that Nigeria needs to understand, that we are unique as a people.
True.
We are resilient in our own nature. We know how to, go through every circumstance. But in all of that, like I always tell people, get your creative mind to be part of what you're doing, so that you don't stay stagnant. Some people, because of one challenge they've had over time, they just feel,
I've given up. This is what.
Let me come back to local dialects to speak how it comes out in that context. It don't happen. But that's not the right way to go about things.
Of course.
Even when you fall 7 times, keep pushing and keep getting yourself out in that conversation. Well, because we have millions of Nigerians who are below the age of 30 on paper, that's a tremendous advantage that we have. But we need to understand that we're Nigerians, we're unique people. We have an extremely young country, full of young minds. Millions of Nigerians, like I said, are below the age of 30, because we've seen the Gen Zs. We've seen them being creative, we've seen them come out very strong, and it's certain that economists often refer to this as a demographic dividend. In simple terms, if a country has a large number of educated, skilled, and productive young people, the economy can grow much faster, of course. That's how we always talk about going back to your creative mind, putting your thoughts out, and ensuring that you have a very smooth run for yourself in terms of employment. Don't stay under the unemployment cadal. Don't stay under or hiding behind the rising cost of living, how you need to survive. When you're making decisions like marriages, home ownership, starting families, like we mentioned, you need to set out those goals, have those conversations with your spouse. Yes, the country is like this, or there are things like this, but we need to also set the standard, because it starts with the family. That's the mindset I always
this thing you talked about, Anita, is that's basically family planning. Yes. And I think another issue we see with family planning is sensitization and education, especially with our traditional institution. There are people who believe that family planning is against religious beliefs, or getting a number of children in terms of your means is against the religion. So I think a lot of sensitization has to be brought on that particular part. We know it is the Lord, the God, that gives us children, and He gives us the provision to take care of them. But you also have to look at your own reality at a particular point in time.
Be realistic with yourself.
And be realistic to yourself. Don't say God would help me feed my kids. God will actually help you, but you have to help yourself. And in terms of you saying, okay, this is what we have at this moment, let's start small, and then over time, if we see that we have more resources to be able to take care of a larger family, we can do that. But you bringing kids into this world and then allowing them to be on the streets, allowing them to be roaming about, is not something to be proud of. And especially to a lot of us who have that mindset, I think we have to change that mindset. You have to have kids that you can take care of at a particular point in time, because we can't. If you see Nigeria's out of school children, it's a large burden.
Very
if you see the Al-Majiri crisis, we have to talk about it. It's something that is a problem for Nigeria. So these are things that, and the reasons why these things continue to thrive, partly, like I said, is due to miseducation and or lack of information. They tell people that just go ahead and do this, but it's not the reality.
Sometimes people just look at it and like, go and get married. When you are getting old, go and get married. It's not about just getting in and getting married, because you also add the number of problems we already have as a nation.
True.
So please don't just last one push it and say, go and get married, because we already have a population wahala.
we do.
That we're trying to deal with, so that we can get.
Nobody's saying don't get married.
No,
don't get us wrong.
I'm not saying plan yourself.
Like, get married within your means
and then plan yourself.
Plan yourself.
Don't add to the burden that
we already have. Do not add to the number of school children you already have, please.
Don't add to the number, please, because we need this to actually speak in terms of volume for Nigeria.
And then, of course, another thing is, I don't know if it's practical in Nigeria. In countries like China, they've had where government has stepped in to regulate those numbers. I read at a certain point in time when China was, even though that law has eased now, but at a point in time they said you can't have more than one kid at a particular point in time.
Yes, because they're trying to regulate that.
So how practical is that in Nigeria? I always ask myself, can we actually do that in a crime like Nigeria?
I'm not even sure but let's hope that we understand the mindset and what this simply means in terms of understanding what population is like, and how it's not just about numbers, it's about also understanding if we need to get it right and get these provisions across board for every citizen.
We did talk about the environmental angle, because we've seen flooding, we've seen a lot of challenges with flooding, especially in a city like Lagos. Lagos is a highly populated city, even though it's a well-planned city, we know. But issues of flooding and all of those other challenges, most times they boil down to a lack of preparation or planning for the population. If you have an estate of, let's say, 200 people, then why are you having over 500 people dwelling in that estate? You have congestion, you have issues with
poor planning as well.
Poor planning, airborne diseases set in, drainages get filled up, and then flooding happens. So even as we are planning our cities, we should also plan those cities along our population. We should know that we have an expanding population, and you're not making provisions. And that's another issue I think we've had issues with over time. You plan a city, you don't plan for expansion. You should know that no matter what it is that's happening, over time that settlement would have an expansion. So we should also plan for that expansion.
That's why I talked about the issue around people getting involved, starting a family, because like I said, family is the major platform that starts up the society. If you get right at the family level, of course, a larger community or larger space of the nation,
you also get it right eventually.
Because it starts with that. That's why I said get it right with your spouse, make the right decisions of your own, and then know what you can afford and how life can be easy. Life can actually be easy if you plan. And then, like I said, when you're planning, when you prepare yourself, opportunities will meet you, and then you also meet with the government policies that fits into what you have in your mind in terms of your planning and initiative to build a better life for yourself. Because the quality of life is very important. It's not just getting to the space and then you suffer till you die. It's for me, I don't like that mindset. You should have a mindset where things can also work out for you in different ways through proper management, that gets into the right place. But we need to wrap this up and get into our next discussion, which will take a very few minutes just to guide you through what's been happening. Well, looking ahead, we'll see that the big question becomes this: how can Nigeria prepare for a population that will continue to grow over the coming decades, of course? And also, several priorities stands out. We look at reliable population data, better education, improved healthcare, job creation, infrastructure development, environmental stability, sustainability, and a stronger investment in young people, of course.
And why that is important is because ultimately people are viewed as assets and not as burdens. And the challenge is ensuring that every opportunity gets to every Nigerian in spite of their location, in spite of their status, or whatever divide it is we have. We have to make provisions and preparations for every single Nigerian, and that's how we can develop as a nation.
Okay, well, while we plan to develop as a nation, we need to stand as the world's best, because we're Africa's largest population. I know the experience I get when you go across the shores of Nigeria. It's always exciting to get that warm embrace. And so let's get it right and set the standard that gives us an edge and gives us opportunity as well. Well, up next is our next discussion, just to give you up to bring you up to speed with latest developments and what's happening around the Orire community, what is like there for them. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this time out. And of course, it's still Global Morning. Like we said, there's something we need to bring you up to speed with that you need to understand. Earlier in our introduction to the program, we talked about the issue around the Oyo students who were just rescued with their teachers. It's been a long one coming, countdown to almost 56 or 57 days where they've been in captivity. The nation went awire, a lot of concerns because we saw little kids who were held in captivity, a lot of concern to the psychological effects, how this was going to play out for these children. Because of course, it's one thing for a child to be somewhere with a family, but it's another thing entirely for a child to be adopted. A child who's trying to understand his left and right to where life is guiding him to, and then you have adults, parents taking care, and then the concern around the teachers who were also caught in, and then when we saw the challenge around this child was beheaded, where concerns were raised, Nigerians really called out for the authorities to pay attention and see how they can be saved out of that captivity. And of course, we want to say it's good news for us here as a nation, Nigeria, because we're seeing that has come to play out well. We're seeing that they've been rescued, they've been brought in for their families, for the loved ones, and then there's a whole lot of excitement for the fact that these children came out alive, because one thing that Nigerians were looking out for was the life of these children. These are destinies, these are future generation leaders who were held back in captivity. And then the psychological trauma to all of this was what the concerns were also worried about. How would these children go back to the reality of life, having been caught in this kind of encounter? It's a very horrible experience for anybody to go through, not talk of a child going through this particular kind of challenge at that particular tender age. So it was really a thing of concern. And then, of course, from what we've seen so far, we've seen that the president actually has shown excitement, and we want to look at how this development has brought in relief to many Nigerians. The rescue of the pupils and teachers adopted from the schools in Orire community area of Oyo State after spending 56 days, like I said, in captivity. It was really a troubling one for mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters who were really praying so hard and banking on the government to come through, and indeed the government came through. The successful operation by security agencies have been widely celebrated by families in your state and many Nigerians, of course. And beyond the celebration, several questions remain. What led to the successful rescue? What role did the Oyo State government also play, and how has the Orire community reacted? We've seen several videos watched social media. We've seen stories telling how this has played out, how the community members are feeling very excited, that saying thank you to the government, thank you for the release of these pupils, because it was really a psychological impact for them. How long they've been in captivity, 56 days is a whole lot. 1, 2, 3 days is deep, but 56 is something that is really horrifying enough, and of course we cannot take that away from these people, and all thanks to the security agencies and the government for this. Well, I want to look at this, like I said, developing stories, how this has dealt. Perhaps most importantly, why are many Nigerians insisting that similar urgency should be extended to victims still held in Kwara, because we still have victims who were also held in Kwara, in Kaduna, and other parts of the country. Recent statements by political parties, civil society group, have also urged the federal government that good enough, you've done this rescue of these school children from Oyo State, but we need to look at the ones in Kwara who are also caught in the same web of being kidnapped and also taken into captivity. If this is a success story, the same urgency should be put across, and let us see how this can play out for Nigeria across the different sectors. Let Nigerians, we've learned the lessons, we've seen the issues that were around all of this, but let's get it right and see how other children or other kidnapped victims, like I said, in Kaduna, Kwara, can also come out and also be alive and happy with what is being out. Well, like I said, questions have been asked, how the community are reacting, what's going on with them. All of this concerns is what is being rolled out. I have some video clips which will also bring to you to tell you the government's conversation, where the state governments said how the community people are also doing, and so we can understand how this rescue mission looked at, how this has begun to bring in the issue around rescue itself, and how Nigeria begins to trust the fact that, yes, the government said something and they also brought it to reality. Well, after weeks of the uncertainty that we saw playing out so far, the national anxiety, the security agencies successfully secured the freedom of the abducted peoples and teachers. From the security perspective, we've seen that this is a very strong one. This is actually a very good testament that we can trust our security operatives because people were raising a lot of concerns to, is this really the way to go? This is something that the security can go into the forest, get. When you hear conversations, you'll be asking yourself, can this really be the way people paint it? But that is part of the things we say. Well, the presidency also has commended the coordinated effort of security agencies, while reports indicate that intelligence-driven operations played the major role in securing the victims' release. And of course, Mukhtar, you understand how this has played out so far.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to say a very big congratulations to all of us as Nigerians, and a very big well done to our security agencies for this giant stride in the fight against insurgency and insecurity as a whole. And it's one that brings a lot of a joy to all of us as Nigerians. But of course, that being said, we cannot rest on our oars at this point, since we still have other people who are in captivity across Kwara, across communities in the northern Nigeria and other parts of the country. So this is, for me, should be a stepping stone and a ginger, if you like, to the agencies to double their efforts in helping Nigeria to become a much more secure nation. This is a very big win, and it's one that is very commendable, like I said earlier. So it's one that we all have got to commend the president and all of the security involved, because they risked their life. And don't forget, there was also a collateral damage in terms of, we lost about 3 soldiers, if I'm not mistaken, in this particular operation. So our heart goes out to the families of the ones they've lost in the course of the operation, and we hope that this is the beginning of greater achievements for our security agencies in Nigeria and Haiti.
Well, like you said, this is we had collateral damages there. We had some concerns that were raised also in terms of how to get these children out, because Nigerians were really worried. All of this were cause for concern, because security is actually everyone's business.
The Minister of Defense yesterday, and not to cut you short, I read where he said the reason why it took so long and why the agencies did not sweep in at the time was because the abductors are threatened that if they had come in there, they would have killed the students. So what Nigerians should understand is it's when rescues are coordinated, it's not something that is how you see it. It's not impulsive. It's not abrupt. It's not impulsive. You have got to plan and look at the timing. There has got to be a right time before all of these actions will be taken. So we have also got to be patient with the security agencies. As much as we want to see them deliver results, we should know that it's not a miracle. It's something that takes time and effort.
Well,
so that's one thing that Nigerians should be aware.
One thing that we've noticed, Mutar, from all this information is the fact that we look at the model of the operation, just like you said, it's not something to just jump in. The lessons security agents have also learned, the security agents have also learned lessons and also guide their mind to how to go about such things.
Other rescue operations.
Because just like Nigerians are calling for the rescue of those in Kwara and Kaduna who are also being faced with this kind of scenario as well. We'll also see how important interagency collaboration has actually been, because not just the army that did this, so
it was the DSS, the police was there.
Police was there, so it was a collaborative effort. It's just that teamwork
always
wins. You can't work in isolation. You need to also look at, but let's also look at how the state governments also played out their own role in also ensuring that there's stability within the people and understanding. Let's quickly take this clip and then we'll come back. We'll look at all the concerns raised, and because of course there was a lot of call on the neck of the governor.
It was actually round the clock, always trying coordinating the efforts.
Because he had been actively engaged and ensuring that these people are brought. Let's take a listen to this and then we'll quickly wrap the conversation around that.
It's very important. If you hear that boom, hold your fire until you see who you want to fire. I beg you in the name of God, this is very important.
Well, we just wanted you to have a glimpse of what the security operatives had to put in place to ensure that these people came back home safe. I was talking to Mutai, I said, these security operatives are also people's husbands, brothers, fathers, but they put their minds to ensure that they serve the nation and ensure that people are happy and brought back home. Look at the way they had to go through the forest, through the water, to ensure that people are brought back to safety.
Honestly, Anita, they sacrifice so much, the military personnel. And, during the week past, the Minister of Defense came out and said no soldier earns less than 100,000. And people are saying, yes, 100,000 is not bad, but for all of this effort, I think they deserve better remuneration and better appreciation, even beyond the money, because they have laid down their lives in the service of this nation. And we really, really commend them for this particular operation. Now, of course, we saw the suspects were apprehended. And another thing is, we always say, okay, after the apprehension of the suspects, what happens next? Do we see them get the trial, and then do we see them get the justice? That's the victims. Do they get justice in terms of these people ending up behind bars and facing the wrath of the law? That's another thing that should be explored, and we hope that it happens expeditiously, especially.
Okay. Well, we've seen this, and I want to say this shows collaboration that security savers business, because we saw serious collaboration between the Oyo State government, the federal security institutions, and also the community as a whole for this eventual success story that we've seen. And we hope that from what the lessons they've learned, they are going to throw this back into
other operations across the country.
Like we said, we've seen the fact that they were able to apprehend the suspects, the terrorist team, and all that, to ensure that safety is paramount, and Nigeria can always rely on security operatives going forward. The community themselves were really excited. They've thanked the government, for coming through for them, and also in giving them succor in the time of their pain. And there's a whole lot to talk about, but time will not permit us to stay long.
That's our friend.
Really wanted to do, but what concerns we've seen is the fact that psychologically, the impact on these rescued victims is something that is top on the government's agenda, which is why they paid attention to see how they can get them to reintegrate into the society.
Rehabilitate and then reintegrate them.
Into
very
society,
important.
and also understand that life is not just what happened. Life has more to offer, and it wasn't something that was deliberate to stay that long, but it was just how the tactical team had to walk around all of this. Well, this is where we'll be drawing the curtains on Global Morning. Amazing conversation, discussion segments so far, Mukhtar.
Of course, very enlightening, and of course, it's a fitting end to a very nice session, seeing those clips of the abducted ones regaining their freedom. Like we said, we want to see more of that across the country. So it's been a great time, and I had an amazing time also on the program.
Well, that's it, and that's the much we can take. And of course, it's thank you so much for joining us on the program. I am Anita Patrick.
And I am Mukhtar Kasim, saying a very big thank you for watching.
All right, bye for now.